The Harry Man Show.
Every set of computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey, welcome to the Harry Man Show number 19, where it doesn't get any more Nsync with Billy Ashbaugh.
Hello.
I have a really special guest today. Someone I've been watching since I was a little kid through his DVDs, VHSs, etc. He's played in one of the biggest acts in the world, Nsync, Benatar, Moody Blues, and he's recently playing from one of the members of Kansas right now. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but how you doing, Billy?
I'm good, man. How are you, buddy?
Good. Just like I said, it's a pleasure to have you on, and this is really cool of you to do this.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Thanks so much for reaching out and thinking of me. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, yeah, you're one of the first people. I have a friend named Gary Romero. We used to watch your, I worked at a Guitar Center for a long time. We used to sit there and watch your DVDs and just the downtime and be like in awe all the time.
Oh, thank you so much. That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, kind of just jumping into it, you just recently posted about a new project you're doing from Robbie from Kansas. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going great. What it is, real quick, I mean, I can't give the farm away, but it's there's a local gentleman here, keyboard player, producer, owns a studio, Michael Franklin. And I knew him just casually in the past and haven't really worked with him much, although we've been in touch and meaning to work together. So he started a project, and what he's doing, at least with Robbie, is bringing in a stable of players, dozens of players, so like a guest spot, and I was one of those guys.
Oh, nice.
I mean, he's got Billy Ashbaugh. I'm not sure if Carmine Peace did another project, and I don't know if he's coming back, but he's got some really great players on this thing, and I was lucky enough to get involved. And I just did my track a couple days ago at his studio, and it went really well.
Mm-hmm.
The material's crazy. I can't wait to hear it. It's great stuff. So, yeah, we'll see where that goes. And of course, everything's up in the air now. But there was talk, and there is talk of in the future going out and promoting it and doing some tours. Mm-hmm. But all that's obviously up in the air.
Oh yeah.
They're just focusing on getting it recorded and released at a certain date. So yeah, I was involved. It was great. I'm excited. Can't wait for it to come out and see where we go.
Yeah, I mean, just from the snippets I saw on Facebook, I think I watched it about 30 times in loop. I really dig those bell patterns you're doing there and those fills off that china. I like I said, you're one of those players that you just can't go wrong with.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's very. Thank you.
Yeah, and just kind of backing it up with, I was reading you started training with a guy called Ronnie Thiago. Am I pronouncing the last name Chicago or
Ronnie Thiago.
Thiago, sorry about that.
Yeah. I forgot where I had mentioned that before, but Ronnie was monumental in my life, man. He was the right guy at the right time for me. I had been playing I started playing when I was professionally when I was 18.
Wow.
Just making money in bar bands or whatnot. And I think I was about 23. And I was really stagnant, man. I hadn't had any lessons. I was doing everything wrong. I was playing with the butt end of the stick. I didn't know how to tune. I didn't know rudiments. I didn't know Latin swing. I didn't know anything. I was just a pop rock drummer who had good feel and could pretty much make a living because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to change my playing. So I just randomly reached out to this guy. He was in a local music store. And he just slammed open so many doors for me. All the things I mentioned before, he just hit me to. And I remember walking out there the first lesson it must have been about 6 books, feeling like a crippled child who couldn't play. I was like, borderline ready to give it up, and then I was equally as excited. So I was like, holy crap. And you got to understand, at that time, I was in a top 40 band in Miami. And I believe we played like 6 nights a week, and we stayed there like 2 or 3 years. It was one of those prisons with a paycheck kind of things. So the weird thing was I was working on rudiments and proper grip and all of this nice technical stuff during the day, like on my practice pad in the apartment. And then I go to the gig, and I had to keep the gig, so I had to just go back to my old, my old way to some degree and just do the gig. So there's this period where I was putting this time in, and it didn't translate at the gig, and I almost gave up. I thought, this is ridiculous. But the thank goodness I didn't, because slowly, over time, the nuances that I worked on in the practice room started to creep into my playing. It was a long process, but I guess that's because, like I said, I was playing, sort of breaking all of the new stuff I was learning and going back to old habits just to survive, just to pay the bills. But like I said, I was patient enough, thank goodness, and it eventually paid off. But he just I went in for one lesson, and for fun, Ronnie decided to set the kid up backwards, literally as if I were left-handed. And I walked in, and he's wailing, and he's right-handed, but he's wailing. He's ambidextrous, is crazy, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And I remember sitting down and just, again, like a little child, stumbling down a flight of stairs. I was like, you're kidding me. But his lessons were awesome, always inspiring. He's great guy. He's a great teacher.
And did he focus a little bit on the Latin side? Because I hear a lot of that in your playing. Was it, or just mainly rudimental? He
no. He hit me to everything. Like I said, he opened all the doors. I touched on some Latin stuff, some swing. Oh gosh, odd time, marches. I remember going to Limb Independence. He wrote a really good ultimate study in independence, it was called, back in the day. His 4-way independence. I dug into that really deep. That kind of stuff stuck with me. All the stuff really sticks with you to some degree, and it's what rounds you out as a player. But, you know what's weird about the Latin stuff? Latin and swing, I enjoy those styles tremendously, but I've never had a gig that was a swing gig, and I've never done a Latin gig. But I really it's one of those things in my spare time when I get a chance to practice, and I'm not, like, working on a project or a gig or a tour or something, and I'm just sitting down kind of noodling around, picking my battle, so to speak. I love that. I love the swing and the Latin stuff. I play it a lot, though I don't really play it when I gig a lot. I guess I practice it a lot.
Well, you're really good at it. I've taken a lot from just your sticking patterns on your hi-hat, just how you kind of utilize the top of the hi-hats. It kind of reminds you a lot of the Weckel stuff you did.
Well, he was a huge influence, so I don't think I play a bit like him. He's just from another planet. Yeah. But no, he was a huge influence. You remember the DCI, VHS that came out? Do you remember those? I
just have to see it to remember it.
There was a batch of them, from what I recall, that came out what seemed like about the same time, within a year or so. DCI was promoting it, and I got them all, and they were huge influences. It was Weckel. Who else was there?
Cahuta?
I don't think Vinny had one. No, Vinny, I wish he'd have had one. Huh. Dennis Chambers had one, Great Bissonette. Terry Bozzio had one. And then I also got one from Rod Morgenstein. So I remember back in the day, like the early 90s, really woodshedding on those. And, but yeah, Weckel was a huge influence. His first, just watching his stuff, most of it went over my head at the time, but it was still, I couldn't stop watching him, and just my jaw would drop at how fluid and smooth and musical and effortless he was. I thought it was incredible. Still is.
Yeah, he just released a new YouTube video. I think it was about 3 months ago. It was just him soloing in front of a crowd, and it just sounded perfect. The guy just can't go wrong with anything either.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah. So going back to taking the lessons with Ronnie, did he change your setup, or were you kind of just stuck in your ways at that point?
No, I wouldn't say he changed it. He definitely opened my ears to tuning, right? For sure, we got into that. No, I think my setup just sort of evolved more for the gig. In now, I guess back in the day, when I was younger, I had to have the Neil Peart kit for no reason, a bunch of times.
Yeah,
just to have. But no, realistically now, like in here in my studio, it's just a 5-piece kit with, I got the Moody gig. I added a second floor tom for the gig, so I put one up here in the studio just so I could mimic, what I'm going to be doing when I go out, and just sort of comfort zone. So basically, my setup will change and alter slightly depending on the gig. And if I have the luxury, I'll recreate that, obviously, here in the studio as I'm working on whatever I'm working on. And again, when I'm in here and I'm just goofing around, I don't got to pack this stuff up and go anywhere. It kind of grows, and things get added. It's this huge monster kit, but it's just for fun, to be honest.
Yeah. Nice.
I've yet to do a gig where I really need, that I couldn't walk in with like literally a 4-piece kit and pull it off.
Yeah. So, and then
Not a lot of it.
going back to that, I noticed you're one of the first innovative guys to add electronics to the kit. How did that come about as well?
That was back with Nsync. Well, we probably did. Well, I take that back with Snap. The artist that did I Got the Power back in the early 90s. My wife and I were both dual drumming with him, and that was our first experience with the electronic kit. My wife would actually play a full-on, D-drum kit, electronic kit back in the day.
Oh, nice.
I did any triggering myself, but that was our first time experimenting with it and kind of learning it. And then when we got into the Nsync gig, I remember when we did the first major tour in the States, the musical director and the front of the house guy was very adamant about the kick and snare sounding like, the album for some continuity. So what we ended up doing was remember those red D-drum triggers?
Oh, yeah.
We did those on the kick drum and on the snare. And so we ended up triggering the kick and snare sound off of the album. And then, of course, out front, the front of the house guy would mix the live drums with that, to create that illusion. So, they'd hear the continuity of the snare sound and kick sound, but you'd have that live sort of raw edge underneath it, or mixed with it, so to speak. And so that was the main trigger. And then I had some sample pads, but they were, from what I remember, like a side stick, real basic, stuff. But I'd sample like my daughter's saying a phrase or something, and I would trigger that. But it was just goofy stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you've seen, just a quick story. I don't know if you've noticed, but the HBO thing where I did the drum battle with Justin.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
There's a section in it where I hit these two pads, and it's my daughter saying, "This is fun."
Really?
Just a quick story. Yeah. So I go out on the Nsync days, and I buy this MPC 2000. I was going to do some programming and just messing with it. Well, in between tours, I ended up plugging, a microphone into it and following my daughter around, and she's singing ABCs and goofy stuff, And so I don't know what we were doing. She said, "This is fun." And so I was out on the road, and I took it with me because it's one of the things just to noodle with and keep me, focused and out of trouble, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were doing this beatboxing, and then I bit the sample into two pieces where this was one and then fun was another one. I put it on two pads. It was in perfect time. And I don't even think I did it at rehearsal. I think I just assigned the sounds, if I remember right, and just did it one night during the show. And was kind of looking around if anybody gave me a weird look, and no one did. So I kept doing it.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of which, I understand everything is like a tight machine when you play with an act like that. Did you ever find yourself improvising night to night, or was it always just the same thing every night?
Well, I'll be honest. It was pretty much the same thing every night. And that was on me. I don't really, I'm sure the musical director would have been fine if I would have taken it another place. But being perfectly honest, I was at that point, as far as chops and stretching out, I didn't have a comfort zone, a very large comfort zone, nothing like I have now. I mean, just through practice and repetition. So, back in those days, I always felt like every gig I was, I was working my hardest just to do the best I could at every gig. So in other words, I wasn't sitting around chilling and jumping up and just wailing, like I had all this skill. No, I felt like I was chasing the ball. So for instance, like when we did the HBO special, we taped it. We put that tour together, and I believe we did a good 2 months of touring before we wound up in New York and filming it at Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. So I had that as what I viewed as time to get myself together and prepared, if you will. So I take myself every show with a mini disc. I just took a wide split out of my head mix and taped it, and would listen back and practice. I literally practiced that solo piece, putting up ideas together in the tour bus. On days off, I would take a practice pad kit out there, and we'd have a day or two off because it's a lot of staging to set up and stuff. So we'd get places to sit there. And I would literally go out into the bus and work on this little section. And what's interesting is I filmed or taped, the mini disc from the first show, and then I kept it, and then I fast forwarded a couple of months, and of course you can listen to the HBO performance. But I swear, you listen to the two, and I sound like a different drummer.
Yeah.
I sound so much better, so much more musical, just so much better from the work I put in. So that's my point, is that I kept, it was always this struggle to kind of, so I didn't have like all those ideas and my tricks to pull out. I just didn't have the vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the chops.
Mm-hmm.
If I did, I'm sure I would have. I might have gotten me in trouble. But it actually, it keeps you reeled in when you don't have a lot to say. You can't really step on toes comfortably,
Yeah.
So
brings me to my next question. I know playing in an act like that, like I mentioned, that's a tight machine. It's hard to gamble. You could throw a whole live show off just from a simple lick. But what were your practice routines and calming yourself before going in front of crowds that big?
I always found an empty spot, in a case in the hallway, tucked or somewhere, and I would just warm up with the pad for like 15 or 20 minutes, and just, I don't know, I'm a bit of a loner and private person, so I like my me time. I like to get just somewhere quiet for a good 15 or 20 minutes and just I'm not going to say meditate, but you just get into a headspace, and you just relax and you focus and you're warming up, and it's just more of a mental thing. And then I'll be honest, like anything, the more you do it, the easier it gets, the less nervous it gets.
Mm-hmm.
It's that sort of thing. But all the nerves were there in the beginning. Oh, still are.
I imagine.
I've always said that fear is a wonderful motivator.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of me, if I picture myself, and I know I'm not ready for a gig, and I sit there and I picture myself stepping behind the kit, there's this heart rate goes up, and I get this almost like a anxiety attack. It just can't happen. It's just like failure's not an option. So just fear. Fear motivated me up big time. If we have time for the story of when I actually joined the Moody's. We had a timer. Is that good?
No, please. It's great just to have you on.
It's just interesting how muscle memory and just rolling up your sleeves and good hard work is crucial. I mean, it's key. So when I hadn't toured, did some stuff with Pat, and then that was over, I think in 04, beginning of 04.
Mm-hmm.
So I get fast forward. I'm not touring. I'm not doing anything. Did a little bit of stuff with this guy, Brian Luttrell, from the Backstreet Boys, but that was just like a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very short. So aside from that, and I wasn't playing local much. I didn't want to. I was just kind of practicing around the house, and I sort of went into teaching and was doing that. And I even had a teaching studio that I opened, I think it was in 2013. So anyway, in 2015, I get this email from this guy, Alan Hewitt, said, "Hey, I'm the keyboard player with the Moody Blues. We're making a change. Would you like your name thrown in there?" And at first, I just thought it was somebody messing with me. So I closed the email and I went to my studio and I was teaching. Later that night, I said, "Wait a minute, what if?" So I went back and I said, "Well, sure, I'd be very interested. Why not?" So anyway, we banter back and forth, and then I ended up getting the gig. And so the story is, I had about 3 months to prepare. Now, I did not tell Alan that I had not been playing for the last, 11 years. I had just been pretty much teaching. So I told my wife, I literally felt like a fighter training to get back in the ring.
Yeah.
I had so much ring rust, but I had 3 months. And I knew the big picture, and I told my wife, I said, "Look, my goal is when I go to that first rehearsal for the tour in Nashville, I said, I want to sit down, and I want to sound and feel like I just came off a 6-month tour with the Moody."
Mm-hmm.
So what that meant was when I got the set list and I charted everything out and I got all the arrangements and everything I needed, I practiced. And I played that crap, and I played it, and I played it, and I played it. I had the show in my session in digital performing and just running back to back. It was like an hour and a half worth of music. And I would play that whole show 3, 4, 5 times a day when I could. I would teach and then come home. And again, that fear of just not, there's failure. I can't sit down and not knock this out of the park. It's not an option. So
Yeah.
it's just old school repetition, hard work, and I just did it and did it and did it and did it. Blisters, breaking sticks, the whole night.
Jeez.
And I'm very, 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 very glad I did, because when I get to Nashville and I sit down behind the kid and we start going, everything changed. Everything I played went out the window. And I thank goodness I had a comfort zone with where I was at, take all that friction and stuff thrown at me, you know, when I went to work into the project, so to speak.
Nice.
So it pays off. So anyone listening, man, just repetition. You know, we haven't talked much about practice, but I'm a big fan of repetition and looping patterns, ideas, sections repetitively. I mean, that's one of my secret weapons for preparing.
Yeah, it's weird to hear a
sure.
guy like you say he gets anxiety when you just look like you're in the focus zone all the time, but that repetitive actually is what pays off. But just here, it's weird to hear you say that.
Well, yeah, it's just true, man. It's just what it is. But, you know, it's like I go through this weird, you know, feeling and the heart rate and everything and the anxiety leading up to, but I really think it's what kicks me in gear to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just realizing that I'm not where I need to be, and if I'm going to be there in X amount of weeks or days or months, you know, I've got to hit it hard, and that's plenty of motivation for me.
Yeah, and speaking of your practice routines, I have a bad habit of looking at the clock and going, okay, I'm going to do this for 90 minutes straight. Do you do that as well, or you just do it to the point where you're like, I can't do this anymore? How do you go about that?
Great questions. What do you ask that? Okay, so I used to be that guy, and I was that guy for a long time. That, like you, I used to love to watch the time, and I get where it worked, and I would literally set a timer. So I would like to do 30 or 60 minutes of a thing, you know, whatever I'm doing. I'll hit the timer, and then I'll try to look away from the clock and not be distracted and focus and say, this thing's going to ding, you know, in 30 minutes, and I'll come up for air and jump into something else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that works really well. But what I started to do was I would sit down and I would say, I'm going to get 4 hours of practice today. Mm-hmm. And then I started to think about filling up those 4 hours instead of thinking about the quality of the practice time.
Mm-hmm.
So ironically enough, I don't know, maybe it's only been a few months ago, I kind of let that go and I turned the timer off and I said, you know what, I'm just going to kind of do what you just said. I'm going to do the other approach. I'm not going to worry about the time, and I'm just going to sit here until it's comfortable, and it is what it is. And for now, mentally, that's a better spot for me. Because I've always been disciplined. I've always been able to sit down, and I've always been able to do that in structure. And I think it kind of stifled me there for a bit. And it made the quality of practice within that time, it suffered a little bit, because I think my head was in that space of like paying attention to the timer and wondering when it's going to be up instead of, hey, just let that go and worry about what you're doing, and that'll dictate when it's over.
Yeah, and the downfall of that is when you get in that mentality, it's like you're just clocking in for work, and you kind of go brain dead on it, you know, a little bit. You're just going through the motions. Your chops are getting better, but you're just becoming robotic, you know, toward the emotions of it.
That's one of the secret weapons, is trying, for me, not to let that happen. Because, yes, in my opinion, you do get a little bit of muscle memory just from doing it sort of superficial from the outside. You're not really focusing. You're just kind of going through the motion. Well, first of all, I got to say, you got to question whether that's really necessary, because in my opinion, if you can play it, why are you practicing it? There's no need to. You can play it. I mean, really, if you're practicing something, it should be a struggle. It should be sloppy. It should be hard to put together. There should be some friction in there for you to wrap around and correct. Otherwise, you kind of are just kind of doing the same thing and going through the motions. But in my opinion, you're right. Being able to focus on that, you know, for 20 minutes would give you more than an hour of just reckless going through it, you know, half-heartedly, I think.
Yeah,
sure.
One thing that's worked for me is I literally put my phone upstairs, because I've learned that if I have that phone next to me, all of a sudden I'm looking at Instagram, I'm like, whoa, how did I get here?
You put me both. I put it out of sight, because you get a text or a notification from this, that, or an email, and it's just constantly bleeping and going off. That's one of the downsides. You're right. You got to try to get into a zone, into a little spot where you can just do your thing and not be interrupted. Yeah,
and technology is a good thing and a bad thing in that sense, because you can spend more time scrolling down Instagram than you can practicing, but it's a curse and a blessing. But I kind of want to back up a little bit. You were speaking how Reckel and Abazia were huge influences. Are there any books or videos you still go back to and watch with them?
Yeah. I love watching Billy Ward.
Oh, okay.
I'm obsessed with him. There's his first DVD. There's a playoff feature that he had a bass player friend of his come in, and they just did bass and drum little jams. And I found out later, chatting with Billy, that was all improv, which made it even cooler. So I just love his style. I love his approach. I love the mechanism thing that he does. And I love his creativity. Have you ever checked it out by any chance?
I may have. I'm just really bad with names on the spot, but I probably will as soon as we're done with this.
Yeah, if you get a chance, check it out. It's really, every time I pop that DVD in, I hit the play all feature with just those things, and it sucks me in every time. I just love how he plays. And then I love watching Vinny Greb a lot. I'm a huge fan of his.
Oh yeah, he does some really creative stuff.
Yeah, so any videos with Vinny or Wackel or any of these guys, I mean, they just drop my jaw with their ability.
Yeah,
Bob Schuckerman's another one. Good grief, wow.
Yeah, he's great. He does. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, I like to catch him in a clinic next time he comes around because I heard he does some really good, great clinics.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing. He's crazy. But like, for instance, some of the books, if I have time, I love to go back and work out of like Future Sounds. David Garibaldi. I love the linear thing.
Oh yeah.
And so that's a great book. And there's one by Jim Chapin, The Advanced Techniques for Modern Drummers. A great swing book, and I just love how he phrases very musically patterns between the kick and snare. So I go back and visit that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan, like I mentioned, Benny Greb and his alphabet system. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I'm a huge fan of that. And any students, like more advanced students, I try to hit them to that. And like a new breed type of approach, I love those as well.
Mm-hmm.
For a whole different reason that practice wise, it's more of a workout concept, if you will. You'll play something with 2 or 3 limbs, like a steady up sonata part, and then you'll use whatever the workout limb, so to speak, to either phrase the alphabet or pick up something like New Breed and read through it. It's wonderful. That's another super weapon that really helps me a lot, that sort of practice. But it all boils down for me to repetition. Lots of repetition and just doing it. Ownership, you just got to be super comfortable with it.
And then one question I want to ask you is, I've noticed you've been a DW endorser pretty much your whole vast of your career. Was that something that was day one, or is that something you sought out yourself?
I sought out that puppy. Yes, sir. So what I've always loved DW. Always, of course, So what happened was back, I think it would have been in 1999, when Nsync kind of started touring for the first time in the States. Our musical director, Kevin Ansons, was out with New Kids on the Block back in the day, and through that, he had a connection still with Yamaha. So because of that, Yamaha took care of our backline, and they supplied everybody, keyboards, drums, and everything with the backline for the first tour or two, beginning of the Nsync stuff. We even did, I'm pretty sure, Yamaha, we did a pay-per-view special, and I played the Yamaha kit on that. But anyway, so long story short, when Nsync started to take off, I thought, man, that would be a good time to kind of knock on DW's door, see if they might be able to, get in with, the family. So I remember sending in, a little request thing, and then I got a letter back with the contract from Garrison, and I was like a kid in candy store. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, they said they were going to make me a hit. I was like, oh my God. So I seeked them out and ended up getting that endorsement. All of the endorsements I got were through the Nsync days.
Oh yeah, and I noticed you have a green exotic looking DW. Is that the one you're still playing now?
I do have that kit now. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think my wife used. Yeah.
That's a really good looking kit. It still holds up.
Yeah, that's a nice kit. I like that kit.
So same thing with Pisces. Were you always a Pisces guy, or did that kind of come about as well at the same time?
Same thing, well, like, so obviously before, the Nsync stuff broke. I mean, I did the stuff with Snap, but still was primarily, just a local drummer. So I couldn't really afford to go out and have a beautiful line of cymbals because they tend to crack quite frequently. So I was one of those guys that just had a neglected setup of Belgian and Fabian, a few places, whatever I had that made sense, together on that gig. So no, so again, same thing. I always loved the Pisces. So when Nsync started getting some recognition, I thought, well, this might be a good time to knock on their door.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with Big Bird. And LP came about through Nsync. Kind of like the Yamaha thing. LP just, when we brought a percussionist in, LP just, took care of his rig and anything I need, which really chimes and a tambourine or something like that. I didn't have much stuff on the gig. Let's see what else. Yeah, so Vic and Evans. Well, Evans, I actually started out with Remo was supplying some heads in the beginning of the Nsync tour. But then I met this guy, Bob Gaston. Oh, yeah. A guru who's, invented and worked with all the companies. And we started a kids program. Well, actually, he had me do a video series, drumming video thing that involved some Nsync play along and different stuff.
Yeah.
That was our first project. This kid, a kid project for in the schools. But anyway, long story short, it's through my relationship with him, and he was in and developing and working in Evans. He got me into Evans and signed with those guys. So, yeah, technically Evans' connection was through Bob, but everyone else kind of came through me reaching out as Nsync kind of got bigger.
Yeah, and I remember watching that Bob Gatson DVD on tuning. That was a great DVD as well, too.
Oh, what a mad scientist, man! I would love going to his home, and down in his basement was his studio and his all of his crazy workings. And man, still to this day, I have this prototype gum rubber practice pad that is the best feeling thing I've ever felt in my life. I was just down there one day and we're doing something, and I'm banging on it, thinking, "Oh, this thing's amazing!" And then some prototyping for somebody that didn't work, and then blah blah blah. Let's just take it. I still use that thing to this day.
Nice. So
yeah,
he knows the stuff. But I wanted to fast forward after Nsync. You met Neil from Pat Benatar. How did that come about?
Pat Benatar's gig. Yeah. Well, that came through Nsync, oddly enough. Huh. So Pat's daughters, she had two daughters, and they were probably like 10 or 12, 13. I remember they were younger at the time, and we were in California playing. And everybody's all excited backstage after sound check. Pat Benatar's coming. We're like, oh, wow. So we met her back in catering with her and Neil and their kids and stuff. And so they go out, and, because of Pat Benatar, they get a nice little seat out there in the front of the house. And I didn't know this at the time, but apparently Neil had come up to our front of the house guy and had said something about me or referred to me or something. So apparently the front of the house guy busts this mix over to a separate mix of just my drums and the click track, and then Neil sat there with headphones the whole night and was watching the show. I had no idea. And so the house guy tells me after the show, I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, they were checking just the whole show." I said, "Oh, wow, crap." So a couple weeks later, I get a phone call from Neil, and he goes, "Hey, I'm making a change here. Wondering if you'd be interested in coming on board." I said, "Oh, man, are you kidding? I'm honored, absolutely." So scheduling was perfect. I believe it was April of 2002 was the last Nsync show, if I'm not mistaken. And then like a month later, I went right into the Pat thing. So it was a seamless little thing. But oddly enough, who knew? I basically auditioned during one of the shows. I had no idea.
And was that a bit of a culture shock jumping from that genre to genre, or did it come more naturally to you?
No, it was like playing with an idol. Man, the first time I was on stage and I'm playing Hell is for Children, and I look up, and it's Pat Benatar. I got goosebumps. You gotta understand. Pat Benatar, yeah. She was one of the first, artists I saw when I was in high school, and Myron Grombacher was a huge influence on me. I mean, he was just the animal Muppets back there. The stuff he did was just amazing. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was a little, like, surreal. That was, like, really crazy. She was in Nsync. It was different because you sort of along for the ride, and it's this slow thing, building, and you're so busy working that, at least for me, I kept myself in the shell, and you pop your head up and you're like, damn, a lot of people are watching, but then you get back into your thing and just do it. But it was different with Pat, because she was an artist that I grew up listening to, and I was on the other side of arena watching her, several times.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a completely different vibe. But it was still very cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember my introduction to her was I could be wrong, but it was an HBO special they did with him on drums, and he was climbing around the drum set. It was a black and white and red leopard kid. I remember I watched that back and forth.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of that special, but that was like my main introduction to that band.
When I saw her live for the first time in Lakeland Civic Center, I think it was 1982. I still got the ticket stub somewhere, believe it or not. I come to find out. Okay, so I didn't know this till I worked with her. But about 2 songs into it, she passes out, and I'm like, "Holy crap!
Really?
I didn't go pass out." It gets up, and I think she passed out again, and she left the stage. And I remember they were doing "Hell is for Children," and I was in high school. And I remember Neil turned around and looked like at Myron, and they must have communicated or something. And Myron went into this spontaneous drum solo just to kind of, keep things going while they're figuring out what the hell was going on with Pat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up, not being able and stopping the show. We'll find out she had food poisoning is what happened that night. So but wasn't able to. But it was just ironic that, I was there for that show. And she remembered. I said, yeah, you passed out in Lakers. She goes, oh, my God, I had food poisoning. Yeah.
It must be surreal in its own sense. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk to you before I let you go there, you do lessons, and I was wondering how you go about doing that. Is that something you have an in-studio for, or you do online as well?
Well, I did have a studio in where I live here in Florida for a few years. I actually had it when I joined with the Moody's and kept it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I no longer have that. And I was going mobile for a bit, which was okay. But I got to be honest, man, this is one of the silver linings in this whole COVID madness. It's forced me into social media. I've never, I've always had like an account, but never posted kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it got me into that, and it got me looking more into the online thing. And I love the online lessons. They work great.
Yeah, I know a lot of people go back and forth on that, but it seems like it's getting better and better for everybody.
It is. I tell you what, it gets the job done really well if your student is ready to take on knowledge, and you don't have to motivate them, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And do bells and whistles to get them into this. I think it works great. The one area that I think does suffer a bit would be the younger beginning students. To not be in front of them and show them the grip and be able to actually be hands-on like that is probably, the only real downfall that I've noticed so far. But with me reaching out more like on social media, like when I'm doing students now, so they're adults and they're usually more advanced, or at least beginning and stuff. So it's perfect. It works great. And it allows me to connect with people, nationwide instead of just in this area where I live. So
yeah, it's a way bigger demographic there.
Yeah. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting some stuff together. I'm going to start advertising online, remote drum tracks.
Oh, nice.
For my studio. I don't have a real killer fast setup with a bunch of gear, but what I do have is sort of like a one-trick pony. My drums sound good, but I've got a certain sound, just how I tune and I play like I play, so it's not like walking into the studio and having, 20 different drum sounds at your touch. It's not like that. But I'm going to get that thing up and running and see if it does anything. But, like I said, with the uncertainty for entertainment and just playing, I think everybody's got to look elsewhere, at least for a bit, until we get back to work,
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you said you're starting it up, but what would be the best place to reach out for you for the time being?
Just on social media like Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
I do the Twitter thing, but it's kind of dead in the water. I'm not doing something right. And LinkedIn's another one. You know what I mean? The stuff just sits there and like idles. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Maybe it's that under a rock thing. I guess you can't live under a rock and be successful with social media.
Yeah.
But Facebook's the best, or Instagram. Just to reach out. Yeah, and I'm probably just going to build a website and start, directing traffic there for the tracks.
Nice.
But the online lessons, just reaching out and just the demographics, find a time.
Yeah, you also have a YouTube channel that I've been jumping in the rabbit hole with too, and there's a lot of good stuff on there. I'll share a link for you on that one as well.
Thank you. I have to update that puppy too. I got some more stuff. I got to keep that more updated too. But I got the YouTube thing going as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, Billy, it was a huge honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I imagine we could have talked for 4 more hours, but I know you got a couple lessons today. Yeah, I really,
no worries.
I appreciate it.
Not that maybe we could maybe do a part 2 down the road.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's up to you. That'd be really cool. I mean, I can probably learn just a ton from you just listening to you, but yeah, I would look forward to that. Like I said, we can reach out to Billy on his Facebook and his Instagram, getting his lessons set up. And I just want to let you guys, excuse me, thank you guys just for listening to this episode. If you enjoy it, share it with your friends. More to come. Thank you.